Kuf Yud Dalet Amud Aleph. We'll begin Kuf Yud Gimel Amud Beis at the very bottom, the end of the last line. Amar Rav Chia bar Rav Amar Rav Yochanan minayin l'shinu begodim min haTorah. So we were discussing before about begodim, big day Shabbos, special begodim. How do you know that min haTorah that one has to change clothing, have the appropriate clothing for each occasion? Shenemar ufashet es begodim v'lovash begodim achir. When the Kayan used to do the to take the haitzah of the ashes of the deshen, so he used to change his clothing. The Torah says you have to change your clothing, put on different clothing to do the haitzah of deshen, to remove the ashes. So you see that you have to change clothing and wear what is appropriate at each occasion. The Torah is teaching you the proper conduct. That the clothing that one uses to cook a pot for his master, he should not use the same clothing to serve him. What he wears in the kitchen is not what he should wear to serve him. Here also, what the Kohen wears when he does the avodah, serving the Rebbeinu Shalom, is not the same clothing that he wears when he moves the ashes and could get dirty from the ash. So he has to change his clothing. It's a bizoyin, it's a disgrace for a Talmud Chacham to go out with shoes that have patches, to go out in the shuk, in the marketplace, in public, to go out that way. He did go out with those type of shoes. Which shoes are we talking about that it's a genai if it's a patch on top of another patch? That's considered a genai. One patch is not considered a genai. A Talmud Chacham that has a grease stain on his clothing, he's chayiv misa. Why is he that? What's the terrible avera? Shenemar kol mesanai avu mavis. It says that literally means those who hate me, hate the Torah, they love death. But al tikri mesanai ela masniai. Not only those who hate me, but those who cause others to hate me. If a Talmud Chacham goes out in a way that it's a bizoyin and it's a disgrace, he causes others to hate the Torah. So he causes those to hate the Torah. He is evo mavis. They have a love death. They are oyev misa. The way the Meshech Chacham explains it is they are oyev misa because it's as if they love death because their kapara is only with misa. So it's as if they want to bring Rahman Islan Chas V'Shalom on themselves, that punishment. Ravina Amar Revad Itmar. He says it's not a revav, it's not a grease stain. It was a stain of Shechva Zera. V'lai pligi ha-beglima. They're not arguing. One is talking, Rav Yochanan is talking with a glima, a cloak, which is worn on the outside, ha-belavusha. And this Ravina is dealing with Rav Yochanan is dealing with the cloak, and Ravina is dealing with a shirt. So it depends on one which is more visible or not. The cloak, which is more visible, so even if it's a stain of a grease stain, then it's more visible. So even that is a disgrace. If it's something which is less visible, then we're dealing with something which is more of a bizoyin, which would be Shechva Zera, and not something which is of a lesser degree, like a grease stain. So it says by the Yeshayahu Navi that just like he went Oram without clothes and Yachav and barefoot, so it's a reference over there that so too that Mitzrayim and Cush, they also will be they'll be exiled, and they will also be Oram and Yachid. So literally that's what it would mean that Yeshaya Novi went 3 years Oram v'Yachid. But Mora Darshan's Cheret can't mean that he was literally for 3 years Oram v'Yachid. So what does it mean? Over here, Oram is begotten beluim. Oram, it means he went with worn out clothing. And the Yachev, barefoot, it doesn't mean literally barefoot, it means b'menolim and tuloim, with shoes, with patch shoes on them. Meaning you go out with not in a covered way, in a way of a disgraceful way, to show that this is what would happen to Mitzrayim and to Cush. Tanan Hasam Revav Alamadei Chaitzitz. So if a article becomes Tomei, you have to be toilet in a mikveh, and something which is on top of it, a stain or something that just separates between the water and the item itself, is considered a chatzitza. If it's on a miyut of that article, it's only something which is, the person is makbid on it. If he's not makbid, it's not chatzitza. So what is the, as far as a grease stain, we're talking about a grease stain on a beged. If there's a ravav al amardeya, if there is a grease stain on a saddlecloth, it's chaitzitz. A person is makbid on that. That's something a person would be makbid, find objectionable, so it's considered a chatzitza. Rashim ben Gamliel Omer ad kisra italki says only if it's the size of a coin of an isra italki, then it's chayz. But otherwise, it's not. Smaller than that, it's not chayz. It's valid begodim. But if it's found on clothing, then mitzad echad ein chayz. If it's only on one side of it, if it doesn't penetrate to the other side of it, it's not chayz. Mishnei tznodim, but if it penetrates to the other side, then it's chayz. He says no, even on one side of it, it's chaitzitz. On the saddlecloth, we said it's chaitzitz. Over there, what do we mean? It means only even on one side, or only if it penetrates on both sides. He said, I didn't hear clearly about this case. However, I have heard something similar. This not. If it's a garment of banoim, which we will define shortly, see what that means. If it's banoim, even on one side of it, it's still a makbid and it's chaitzis. Mishal bur, but if it's a bur of someone who is a simple person, a simpleton, mishnei tzdadim, he's only makbid if it penetrates to the other side. And he said, therefore, the saddlecloth shouldn't be more chashuv than the beged of an amaretz. If a beged amaretz is mishnei tzdadim, similarly, the merdas, it's only chaytzitz of if it's mishnei tzdadim. So, l'chera, this argues on, and then what we said before, that Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Mishum Rabbi Shmuel, he says that af mishnei tzdadim, rather, even one side it's chaitzitz, which seems to imply that all begadim are chaitzitz on one side. Over here, we're saying, Rabbi Yossi says that banoim is mitzad echad, but shalbur, if it's not banoim, if it's shalbur, it's mishnei tzdadim. My banoim, so now what is the definition of banoim? He's saying that banoim is chaitzitz even if it's one side. They're particular. But bur shnei tzdadim. My banoim, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Elo Talmid Chachamim. It's a reference to Talmid Chacham she'eskim b'minyan shel olam. They deal with the building of the world. So according to them, so therefore rather they are more makbid. Talmid Chachamim are more makbid. And if the stain is even on one side, it's chaitzis. But otherwise, it has to be on both sides. So continue on with the discussion of clothing with Talmid Chachamim. What's the definition of Talmid Chacham? That you would return a lost object to him, even with just him recognizing. Normally, to return a lost object, it's only if there is a siman, if the person can give a siman identifying mark, or if he has edim, he has witnesses. But a Talmid Chacham, if he says, and he declares, he says that this is my object, I recognize it, there's Tviyas ayin, I recognize it. If he's a genuine Talmid Chacham, you can return him without even a siman. What is the definition of a Talmid Chacham in this regard? That if his garment is inside out, he turns it to the right way, not to have the seams revealed, not to have the underside of it revealed. He's makbid on his appearance. Of course, he has to be a Talmid Chacham in learning as well, but he also is makbid on his appearance. What's the definition of Talmud Chacham? That you can appoint him as a leader over the tzibor. If you can ask him a question anywhere in Torah, and he can answer, and even in Maseches Kala, which is not generally learned, Kala Bloi Brocha Surah Kebala Kenida Labala Kenida, even that Masechta which is not normally learned, he can answer. He can answer everywhere. What's the definition of Talmud Chacham? That he has to be supported by the people, by the city. He doesn't deal with his own business. He's dealing with Chafzei Shamayim. But that's only to provide his basic needs. Literally, it means his bread, his basic needs, but not for his luxuries. What is the definition of a Talmud Chacham? That is, if you answer him a question halacha anywhere, and he can answer. And the question is, it's relevant to whether to appoint him as a leader over the tzibur. If you can answer only in one area, in one masechta, then you can appoint him a leader only in his place, in that place. But if you can answer everywhere, in all areas of Shas, then you can appoint him to be a Rosh Yeshiva. So one definition of Banoim that we said, that if there's a stain, even on one side of the garment, that they remakbid on it. One definition of Banoim is Talmid Chachamim. But another definition is Rabbi Shimon Lakish Shaimer Elo Kalim Ha'Yarian Aboim Medin Sayan. Those are the garments of the bathhouse attendants that are of high quality and come from Medina Sayyam, come from far away. Those are made of fine material, and therefore there's more of a hakpada, and that's what we say, even if the stain is on one side of it, there's still a hakpada, and it will be a chaitzis. You mean to say that these garments are white, and therefore they're particular about even on one side of them? You mean to say that these clear al yarim are white? Amar Elahu Rabbi Yana said to his sons, says, "Benai, my sons, Altik Ravuni loy bekelim levanav loy bekelim shchorim." He said, "With the time of Misa, not to bury him, not with white clothing and not with black clothing." Why levanim shemaloy eskev kechalsim bein avela? Not white ones, because perhaps maybe he will not be zeicha, and he will not be zeicha to Elam Haba, and he'll be amongst the Rishoyim, and they will be in black, and he'll be dressed in white, and therefore it'll be inappropriate, and he'll be like a chassan sitting amongst the mourners. So it will not be appropriate to where his position is. So that's why not in white clothing, and shchorim, not in black clothing. Shema eska, maybe he will be zeicha lo'elam haba, and then if he's dressed in black, he'll be like an oval amongst the chasanim, which should also not be appropriate. Ella, how should they bury him? Ella bekelim ha'yarim b'im medina sayyam. Rather, to dress him in with the cloth of the bathhouse attendants that come from Medina Sayyam. So you see that it's not white and it's not black. Alma sumkinino. You see that it's dyed. It's not black, but it's not white, it's dyed. Now here we're saying that they're very particular, it's the white clothing, that they're white. The difference is if they're referring to the glimi, which is the cloaks which are worn on the outer garments, those are dyed, those are colored. Habalavushi, which refers to the clothing, not the cloaks, and those are white. Those clothing is white. So the ones that are worn on the outside are dyed. The ones that are worn under the cloaks are white. And in reference to the white ones, we said that if the stain is on one side.